Welcome to Bedtime Whispers, where darkness comes to life and nightmares become reality. I once worked as a nurse in a mental hospital. It didn't last very long, and I soon left. Of course, it's clear why. A mental hospital is not the most cheerful place. I won't describe all the charms I saw. That's not what I want to talk about. I'm going to tell you about a patient out of respect. I will not disclose his real name. Let his name be Arcady. Arcady caught my attention on my first day at work. He was not like the other patients, not like the convicts who mimicked the insane, not like the schizophrenics who muttered incoherent nonsense to themselves, and certainly not like the poor, plant-driven patients who can only stare at a white wall with devastated eyes all day long. Arcady looked like an ordinary man, exhausted but still sane. His medical records said he was only 29, but he looked more like 39. His speech, his actions, and his eyes showed no signs of mental pathology. I wondered what he might have been put in here for, and I learned from the nurses that Arcady had once killed 3 people, including his own sister, by very elaborate means, for which he had been declared insane and sent here to spend the rest of his miserable existence among the half-living shells that had once been human. I was stunned. How could such a perfectly reasonable-looking man be a bloody murderer? If I'd seen Arcady on the street, I wouldn't have thought of it. Even though I knew about Arcady's past, I couldn't help feeling sorry for him. I had never been naive, but still my subconscious could not allow the thought that Arcady had cut short the lives of 3 people. One day I had a dialogue with Arcady that I still remember with a shudder. Then I went to his room to give him an injection. "Hello," I said from the threshold. "Arcady, bare your shoulder." The doctor ordered an injection. Arcady silently obeyed. It was rather strange, considering that Arcady, at least formally, was insane. Usually the other patients often threw wild tantrums, and without the help of 2 orderlies with biceps the size of an elephant's waist, no procedure could be performed. With Arcady, however, this never happened, and I even went to him alone with a syringe, without fear of the syringe ending up in my throat. When I was finished, Arcady said, "Thank you, and thank you for your address." "What do you mean?" I was surprised. "You call me by my first name and address me as you. The other workers usually address me as hey, you, but amongst themselves they call me nothing but the vulture and the butcher." His voice was tired and full of indifference. He didn't seem to care at all about what he was talking about. I had an attack of pity. Despite my 10 years of experience as a nurse, I hadn't yet completely wasted a speck of humanity. I crouched on the edge of Arcady's bed and asked him the question that had been tormenting me for a long time. "Did you really kill 4 people?" Arcady was quiet, and then he said, "I don't know for sure anymore." "I see," I said disappointedly. At that moment I thought I was wrong, and Arcady was really crazy. I know what you thought. I know what you must have thought, considering where we are. Maybe you're right, but I still want to believe that you and the doctors and even I don't know exactly what happened back then. Arcady looked away as he said these words, and didn't even look in my direction. What do you think? I asked. I don't know what to think. Arcady smiled sadly and shrugged. I was afraid that my interest might cause Arcady's aggression. My mind demanded that I be careful with a psychiatric patient, but my intuition insisted that there was nothing wrong with Arcady. Trusting my intuition, I asked Arcady a question. What happened then? I couldn't tell that to the person I'm familiar with. He looked at me for the first time and smiled. Good. Now will you tell me what happened then? I'd be only too happy to tell someone about it. I don't expect you to believe the story. You'll probably think that's where I belong. But you know, something inside of me tells me I can tell it to you. I think you're a good man, and you wouldn't judge me the way other people do. Anyway, look, I had a little sister. Our parents died when I was just 18 and she was 8. I won't go into the details of this sad story. All that matters is that we were left alone. From a carefree childhood, I was abruptly thrust into the harsh world of adults. All alone, burdened by a little sister. But no, I don't complain about her. After the death of my parents, she became the only person close to me. She became everything to me. I had to learn to live as an adult. For the next 5 years, I didn't feel sorry for myself. I studied during the day and worked in the evening in order to have at least some money to live on. I had to save on everything, especially on myself, and I did it in favor of my sister. Once I went a week without food just to be able to give my sister a bar of chocolate for her birthday. My sister couldn't help me, but all I needed was her childish smile. I think you can understand what was going on with me at the time. My nerves were at their limit, and I had to sleep only in the rare free minutes. Yes, I understand. As a doctor, you must wonder how I did not go mad. It was only my sister's inflexible will and happiness that saved me. Arcady's story was interrupted by his short laugh, and then he continued. That's how we lived until I found a decent job after graduation. It seemed that now we would live a normal life. I was already making plans for the future and had no idea that all my illusory happiness was in danger of disaster. And that catastrophe came in the form of a little flyer hanging on a pole. My sister noticed it as she and I were walking shopping from the store. "Oh, look, the circus has come to our town," she said then. I was as surprised as you are now. I always thought that strolling circuses only existed in foreign films, not in the vastness of our mother Russia. Arcady interrupted his story again and covered his eyes with his hands, but I noticed a heavy tear streaming down his cheek. "I'm sorry," he said, sobbing. I can't bear to remember her voice. You know, She used to call me brother so sweetly, even when she was older. You don't have to tell me if it makes you suffer, I said as gently as possible. No, please listen to me. I must speak out. I beg you. I did not want to aggravate his anguish by refusing and agreed to continue listening. I then asked her, "Do you want to go?" And she immediately agreed. In fact, when I asked her, I hoped she would say no, because I really dislike circuses. They always gave me the creeps. But for my sister's sake, I got over myself and agreed to go. The circus was located outside the city in a wooded area. At first, we took the electric train, and then we walked through the woods. It was summer. The weather was fine. It was evening, so we experienced only the pleasure of the forest walk. At the circus, I had to exert a lot of willpower to suppress all the negative emotions that the very sight of the circus caused me. My sister, on the other hand, was full of joy. How old was she then? Oh, 16. Yes, a 16-year-old girl who loved circuses. We went inside, sat on a bench, and waited for the show to start. A few minutes before it started, everyone who came was given small red pieces of paper with some number written on them. My sister and I had the same number, for the show started, and the entertainer, who reminded me of the Joker in the comic books, came on stage. Funny, isn't it? Arcady smiled. The whole show lasted about 2 hours. At the end, the Underjoker came on stage again and said that the circus was having a contest, and everyone should now look at their paperwork that they had received before the show started. Then the entertainer said that all those whose papers had the number written on them were the winners of the qualifying round and had to go on stage immediately to participate in the contest. I didn't like it right away and wanted to leave. But my sister was so excited and wanted to participate so much that I suppressed all my negativity again and even smiled as I went on stage. In addition to us, 2 other people came out. We were lined up, and the entertainer announced that each participant had a different contest. The entertainer approached the first person in our row, a man in his 30s, and announced that the contest for him was to eat cake for a while. To the applause, several clowns brought a table, a chair, and a huge plate with lots of cream cakes onto the stage. The contestant immediately began to eat the cakes, and the entertainer moved on to the next contestant, a young girl whose contest consisted of blindfolding her and letting various animals lick her hands in turn. The girl had to guess these animals. This whole spectacle annoyed me more and more with each passing moment. I had absolutely no desire to participate in these contests or be there at all. Arcady sighed and continued, "Maybe I should have just grabbed my sister then and run from there." After the girl, it was my sister's turn. She had to dance in a circle of girls dancing with ribbons, and she had to make sure she didn't get tangled up in those ribbons. Then the damn entertainer came up to me, but no sooner had he opened his mouth than I immediately told him, practically growled, "Get away from me, you bastard." The announcer wasn't confused, but just joked that I should wash my mouth out with soap. That would be my contest. Two clowns came up to me and wanted to grab me by the shoulders, but I broke free. My anger was out of control. I wanted to go outside for air to calm down, but the clowns were blocking my way. They tried to catch me and do the entertainer's errand, but I violently shoved them off and ran out from under the marquee, tripped, and fell right to the ground. The show started at 6 o'clock and was supposed to end at 8 o'clock. But when I got outside, I realized that it was well into the night. The time flew by completely unnoticed. My sister and I could not catch the train, so I turned around to go back to the marquee. But he was no longer there. Arcady could no longer hold back his tears. He put his head in his hands, and his sobs filled the room. Only after I injected him with a sedative did he manage to stop the sobs. I decided that it was unprofessional of me to torment a man like that, and told him to go to bed. But Arcady practically begged me to listen to him, and without knowing why, I agreed. The chapeau was gone, and in its place I saw only a few large torches illuminating. Oh, God! He covered his face with his hands again. I know you won't believe this is possible, but there among the torches I saw a crowd of half-decomposed corpses instead of circus performers, bones sticking out of their rotting flesh with worms swarming in them. Now I saw that the man who had been eating brownies for a while was not fed brownies at all. These corpses were tearing pieces of flesh off themselves and shoving them into that man's mouth, and he was greedily swallowing the disgusting pieces. With the girl it was the opposite. The living, half-skeletonized remains were eating themselves, and she only left and said, "Oh, that looks like a dog. Ha ha, and that must be a goat." At first I was only in shock, but when my gaze reached my sister, the cold clutches of fear squeezed my eagerly beating heart and plunged it into the black waters of despair. My sister, my beloved, the only one I'd lived for the past 8 years, lay dead on the ground, and these creatures were slashing at her body with huge knives. When I saw this, my mind vanished, my vision blurred, and unable to feel my own body, I collapsed to the ground. When I woke up in the morning, I immediately ran to report what had happened to the police. I told them everything as I saw it. What a fool I had been. I couldn't even think about how the police would take my words. I could imagine what it must have been like from the outside. Some crazy guy leading the cops to 3 dead bodies and telling them that a bunch of rotten circus performers had killed those people. Needless to say, I was found to be the murderer, and also insane, though that was probably for the best. They say it was better here than in the penitentiary. Arcady looked with his tired eyes into mine and said, "Now you know how I got here." I couldn't find anything to say to him, so I just stroked his shoulder affectionately and suggested that he rest. When I left his room, The head nurse came up to me and asked why I was taking so long with Arcady. He and I got to talking a little. I said, "What was that about?" The head nurse asked suspiciously. "Oh, nothing," I said vaguely. "Strange. I guess he likes you. He doesn't usually talk to anybody else." I didn't ask him or anyone else for more information about Arcady. I worked at that hospital for a few more months, and during that time, Arcady and I became almost friends. It's been a few months since I changed hospitals. I no longer deal with psychiatric patients, but I still go back in my mind to Arcady and ponder his stories. It's the ravings of a madman. My mind can't believe it. But that story aside, Arcady no longer has symptoms of insanity. I don't know if this is true or not, but since then I've tried to avoid circuses, just in case. Thank you so much for your attention. Subscribe to the channel. See you soon.